Hello, beautiful people. Christelle Robinson-Tiedemann here, coming to you live on this wonderful Monday evening. Please excuse the hat. This was a bit of an impromptu decision, and it wouldn't be happening without the hat. So, with the hair day that I'm having today, this is the only way this was going to happen, and I have something to share with you. Hi! I would love it if you say hi as you come in. Sending all my love. It has been a minute, and I have a story to share with you, and there's a lesson in there. There's a contemplation that I wanted to share with you. And so it has been a minute. I haven't been on here in a while. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus. And the thing is, hey, hi Lauren, how are you? So the thing is, I have been taking a little break from season 1 of the Love and Meaning podcast. I am in between the seasons, and in that in between, I have been working on something behind the scenes, really exciting, something to bring forward to you all. But the universe had slightly different plans. And even though I'm on this hiatus in between seasons, I wasn't supposed to be on a hiatus from showing up for you. That didn't mean I wasn't going to post, I wasn't going to go live, that I didn't have things to say. That was not what the hiatus was. But the universe had a little bit of a different idea of how things were going to go down. So I have the story to share with you. So I am an occupational therapist by day. I am a life coach and human design reader by night, or so to speak. So my love for all things the human mind and the way that we think, the way that we operate, the way that we feel, and how that makes us show up in our lives has been long-standing. And so I became an occupational therapist, and I've been working in mental health, in psychiatric occupational therapy to be specific, for 8 years now. I've been an OT for 12 years, and but 8 years of that now has been with a specific focus in mental health, in psychiatry. And so my love for the way that the mind works, that is long-standing. And I work in inpatient psychiatry, meaning that the patients that I see are often brought in against their will, and they're in a really dire, sick stage of their illness. They're needing a lot of assistance. They're not doing very well when I see them. And I love what I do. I love this field. I love so much about it. I also felt a strong desire to be able to work with people who are ready and willing to go to the next stage, who are fully taking responsibility in their lives and are ready to be like, hey, I want my life to be the most amazing thing ever. Let's focus on the energetics and going inward to kind of maximize the inner workings of ourselves so that our outer lives are a reflection of that. And I wanted to really work with people who wanted to do the work, and there began my coaching career. So during the day, often helping people who are at a really fragile state of their lives and their journey with themselves, and then also working with people who are really taking a stance and deciding that they're going to make a difference in their life. And there began my coaching career. So I love working with individuals in all of these ways. So therefore, I'm still in that in-between stage where I have my day job. I'm working as an OT, and I'm also coaching. I'm also a human design reader. And so at work, recently, there was an incident, and I got hurt. And it's a part of the reality of the job. It does happen. It's not something that I want it to happen. It's not something that I wish upon anyone. But in the process of a situation happening where a patient really was out of control, they were injuring someone, and in my assistance in intervening while this was going on and trying to help the person, the staff member that the patient was injuring, I also got hurt. And to be specific, I was bitten. And I damaged my index finger and my middle finger. Here are my little babies. And I am in recovery from that. And so after the incident, I ended up taking 2 weeks off of work to just take care of myself. And the thing is, this is where this gets really, really interesting. And what I wanted to come on here and share with all of you guys today is a lot of things became apparent to me in these past 2 weeks, which is a short period of time. But I've had a profound sense of awareness in this short period of time. And so I've been really quiet on here. You haven't seen me showing up for a little bit. And that was just what I needed to do in order to look after myself. This incident turned out to be really traumatic and very difficult and very challenging. And my first interesting observation is that even for me, I'm a person who works professionally in mental health. I am fully aware of the stigma. I am fully aware of a lot of things that the general population isn't aware of when it comes to mental well-being and various challenges in the psyche. And still, after this incident happened, I had a very difficult time acknowledging that I am traumatized, acknowledging that this was actually a really scary and upsetting nervous system experience. And for someone who works in mental health, to still have a difficult time expressing, admitting to themselves, saying out loud that I'm struggling emotionally with this thing that happened. Imagine the average person who has none of the exposure that I have. How difficult it must be to say and share and admit to themselves that they're having a hard time, or that they're traumatized, or that even recognizing that that's what that is. So that was the first huge awareness. And already, I can say that I've already come to that part where I'm recognizing some of the benefits of this negative experience, which is really being able to understand in a way that I didn't before what it's like to have your nervous system be so out of whack that you really don't have any conscious control over what your body is doing. So after the incident happened at work and I was injured, the first day was, very much adrenaline. Even like I went to the emergency room, I was treated, all of that stuff. I was told, don't come back to work, take some time off. It hadn't really sunk in. What had happened to me. And then day 2, day 3, really around day 3, day 4, did I have that visceral awareness that I'm not okay. And some of the things that I was experiencing were very vivid flashbacks, where I would be in the scenario again, where the client was attacking the staff member and hurting them very badly, and I intervened, and then I got hurt, and I'm re-experiencing this entire thing. I don't want to say anything too graphic I don't want to traumatize anybody else, but hearing, for example, a person's pleas for help and cries of pain, and these kind of things were replaying a lot in my mind. And something that I wasn't aware of before was I would also have these kind of flashbacks where the story would change and something worse would even happen. So it was kind of like movies, replays, but like there would be, my psyche would take it down a darker path, a different road. And so this was happening completely out of my control. I would be sitting and talking to my husband, or I could be reading a book, I could be watching a TV show, and all of a sudden I'm right back in the scenario. So it was a very arresting experience. So, as I've explained, it really took a lot out of me, and I needed to give my time and my attention to healing. I also had, a physical injury to look after, and I'm happy to say that I'm healing really, really well. I'm doing so much better. Everything is going really great, but this is just, I'm actually in a stage right now where I'm feeling well enough to share. So I'm not re-traumatizing myself in telling the story, but I can even tell you that before I came live today, which is not something that really scares me, I could say, like, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good with just talking to people, strangers, putting myself out there. There's a level of nervousness and scary, but in general, like, I'm outgoing enough or personable enough that it's not the scariest thing in the world for me. And before I pressed go live, like, my heart was really, really, really beating really fast. So I still experience, certain things. But let's backtrack a bit for me to really bring together the lesson that I want to share with you, which is related to the title that I named this live, Time Warp. Because this is really a story about our concept of time. This is a story about perception. So let me backtrack. And after the incident happened, I was quite traumatized. I received all of the assistance and support. My work was so wonderful. And so I was receiving counseling, which was profoundly effective. Really, 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 really helpful. So I highly recommend anybody going through something really scary, traumatic, if you feel your nervous system out of whack, do not be afraid to seek help. You will be amazed. I was amazed at how one session alone was drastically helpful. The very first session, I was like, wow, I feel so much better. I have such a better understanding of myself. And I work in mental health, guys. This is the thing. I work in mental health. So for most people out there that don't even see this stuff on a daily basis, like, go and get professional help. I am professional help, and I got professional help, okay? So I had all the assistance and support that I needed. So we hit about 5 days in to my recovery. And the thing is, I don't know what it was based off of. I don't actually know where these arbitrary pressures come from. But I decided, my boss talked to me. I have, this is a workers' comp case because I have, injuries. Everyone has said, take the time that you need. And for some reason, I decided that 1 week is going to be enough. I'm going to be fine. 1 week is going to be enough. And so a week later, I decided that I'm going back to work. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that I work in a very small department and there's only 2 OTs, and I felt really bad that my coworker, my friend, is covering all of this on her own, and I really wanted to be supportive. So I told myself a week is enough time and we're going back. The day came this is not a week ago from Wednesday. The night before going back to work, I can't sleep. I'm having nightmares. I wake up the next morning, I do my routine, I get on the bus, I'm going to work. The closer and closer the bus is getting to work, the more nauseous I'm becoming. Physically nauseous I'm becoming. My heart is beating fast. I start to cry spontaneously for no reason. My body was literally going into panic. And I realized, on the way there, I'm not ready. I am not ready. I'm thinking like, I don't want to walk through the doors. I'm scared to see another patient. Like all of these things, these physical responses are happening very viscerally in the moment. And I'm sure there were signs before, but I never paid them any mind. I just decided it's been a week. I'm supposed to go back. Luckily, I am blessed and the universe loves me. I had scheduled my follow-up appointment for my little baby fingers that same day that I was returning to work. And so I didn't even have to be the one to say, I've changed my mind, I'm not ready. The doctor actually did it because I was told my hand needed more time. And so I was told that I can't actually return to work and I need to take more time off. And the more time would be another week. And I was so relieved. I was so incredibly relieved. Because I just completely underestimated the way that my body needed to heal. The profound thing that happened in that moment was like, why did I think 1 week would be enough? Like, why did I decide that it would be enough? Where did that come from? Where do we get these arbitrary timelines from? These pressures from? I had coaching myself. I have my own coach. And this is what it came down to. These were the pressures that I was experiencing. I'm supposed to be on a hiatus. I'm supposed to be on a break in between seasons of my podcast and working on this amazing thing that I'm going to be bringing to the public really, really soon. That's what I was supposed to be doing in this downtime. But instead, what I was doing was sitting at home, relaxing, breathing, soothing my body as it went into flashbacks and all kinds of other things, talking to the supports that I needed to talk to, resting. Sleep was really, really good. These were the things that I was doing. And I had this voice in the back of my head saying to me, this whole time while I'm doing all these things that are fantastic for myself, I had this voice in the back of my head and it was saying, you're wasting time. You're wasting time. This is the way that this time was supposed to be spent. What are you doing? And it's really amazing how sure that voice in the back of my head was. There was so much confidence in its rightness that I'm wasting time. But why is it that I didn't question that the time, for example, that I would be going back to work, I'm forcing myself to go back to work 1 week after this incident, this traumatic incident that occurred. That 1 week, going back to work and struggling through realizing my nervous system didn't even want to walk into the building, fear to see my patients, pain every single time I touched a key on the keyboard, not being able to, do things properly with my hand the way that I was doing them before. What made me think and feel so sure that that's not wasted time, but that the time that I'm sitting and spending with myself and soothing my nervous system and receiving counseling and getting help and getting rest and allowing myself to heal, that is a waste of time. This is it was this profound moment where I was like, I was so sure that this voice was correct. But what would that week have been like back at work? And this so-called week that I have been wasting time and not working on what I've been wanting to work on in the background and not being productive. Me pushing myself through, producing things out of alignment, forcing myself to do things that don't feel like they're coming from my heart and my passion and my authenticity. Why is that not wasted time? So the next day, after I've been told you can't come back to work, you need to take more time and let yourself heal, 24 hours later, literally the next day, I woke up. My fingers, the sensation in my fingers was so much less. Like the pain was so much less. The sensitivity was so much less. That was 1 day later. The thing that the doctor had said to me when I went into the office, he had said, his exact words were, you need more time. It kept ringing in my head. You need more time. 24 hours is time. 1 week is time. They're both time. What they mean, this decision that I've made, that if this amount, this period is not spent this specific way and doesn't have this specific outcome at the end, that is actually what the representation of what this time is. It is entirely non-linear. It's not about the amount of time. It's about what happens in that time. My assumption, my random arbitrary decision of what was supposed to happen in this time had nothing to do with what was best for me. It had absolutely nothing to do with what was best for me. If I just went with that pressure, I would have been sitting in my office re-traumatizing myself rather than healing, feeling inadequate because I actually wasn't capable of doing the job, and then basically backtracking all the work that my nervous system was doing to protect me anyways for the past week. That's what I would have been doing, thinking that I'm being productive and using my time well. It took 24 hours for me to have that wake up moment. What the actual heck does this time thing even mean? So with the support of my own coach, God bless her, she had this really beautiful conversation with me where I was able to be an absolute emotional mess. I had my breakdown, I had my tears, I had the wallowing, I said all the things that, I'm wasting time, I'm being this, I'm being that. I let it all out. I did the processing thing, and then we came right back to where I am right now, which was, this is not real. This is not the point. The point is about how you feel. The point is about showing up as my greatest self. The point is about me being in alignment with myself. Every single thing that I'm working towards in my life is because I believe that in the having of it, in the doing of it, in the creating of it, I'm going to feel good. The actual ultimate outcome in all of this is to feel good, is to be happy, is to love my life, is to be obsessed with my life. How often do we get so focused on our productivity, on our time, that we forget the actual point underneath all of it, which is to feel freaking great? Me forcing myself through that process, me not taking the time to heal, would have been the worst use of my time. But my first response was to beat myself up about that. So I want everyone listening to this, if you were drawn to this today, I want you to reflect. I want you to contemplate on that, on how we are formulating our understanding of our time, the way that the perspective that we're taking about this. What are you doing that is in resonance with, you might not have my exact same story, that you're injured off of work, you had a traumatizing situation, and your nervous system needs to heal. But where have you decided ahead of time, not based on what is actually what's best for you, but simply because we are told that 1 week means blank. It's the same thing that makes us hit 30 years old and freak out about our 30th birthday because we're not at a certain stage of life, or 40 years old. whatever age it is. It's the same thing. Forgetting the whole point is the actual experience. So that was 24 hours after the doctor told me I needed to stay home another week. 48 hours later, the sensation in my fingers was even better. 72 hours later, even better. Now the flashbacks aren't even happening. Nightmares stopped. 5 days later, nothing. No random nervous system upsets, no flashbacks, no nightmares. That was just 5 days later. 5 days before that, I had decided I'm a complete waste of time, that I'm so behind, that I can't believe this bad thing has happened to me, that I'm inadequate because I'm not able to go back to work yet. 5 days. In the grand scheme of things, what the heck is 5 days? What the heck is a week? What the heck is 2 weeks? This entire healing process had its highest peak of terrible right back down to neutral in a matter of 2 weeks. That entire curve from highest to lowest happened in 2 weeks. I have done so much less in 2 weeks in my life. I've been engrossed in a book series so much and barely took my head up out of the covers of my bed because I've been so involved in some novel, a fantasy novel that I've loved before. In 2 weeks. What is 2 weeks? That entire curve happened in 2 weeks, and I was 100% sure that I was a giant waste of time. Every single day was like a drastic difference. And all of a sudden, my perception of what I had deemed to be a poor use of time, a demonstration of my inadequacy, became a fascination of the human body and the human mind. My God, I cannot believe that was me a week ago. And then the week before that, I can't believe. I'm in hand therapy now. And when I went to go and first see my occupational therapist for my hand, if she even came close to my finger, I wanted to freak out. That's how sensitive and painful it was. And now I'm pressing things. Days. It's actually such a short period of time, but something so profound has occurred in those 2 weeks. I've actually had far more evolution in these past 2 weeks that I've so-called done nothing than I would have had simply working on my project. In those 2 weeks, my body has shown me that I think I'm part Wolverine because I am healing so freaking well. My mind has shown me that it is amazing and that the nervous system is a magnificent creation. I was told by the psychiatrist that I was speaking to that flashbacks, part of the reason for it that our mind does that is to he used a hilarious example of diarrhea, guys. I was on the floor. Talk about knowing your audience, right? Potty jokes, you got me. So he's think of it as in med school, when we'd have cases of toxic diarrhea, basically, you want the person to keep pooping. You don't want to keep that in. It's actually their body's way of expelling the toxin. Apparently, it's very similar with flashbacks and the replay. Your body's trying to expel it. And the timeline that he gave me was exactly my experience. Mind you, for anybody that's listening to this and you've been through an extremely, far more traumatic experience or chronic trauma, the timeline is going to be very, very different. So I'm not speaking to anyone else's experience in particular. There's always going to be an individual aspect of this, but for me, it went really similarly to what he said. It really just gradually got better and better and better and better. 2 weeks, I saw my body do this. 2 weeks ago, I was literally sitting. One of the things that I did naturally, by the way, you want to talk about the amazingness of the nervous system? Apparently, there are many different strategies that you can use to help to regulate your nervous system when you are kind of in panic or you are in a replay of a traumatic experience. So your nervous system is in fight or flight. Something that my body just did on its own was I started to hum. It was really weird. I'm not going to lie, it looked really weird. My husband was like, "What is going on with you?" I would just randomly, so if I went into a flashback while he was talking to me, my body did it. I wasn't consciously doing it. I just started to rock, and I was going like, humming. And when I told my coach, who is trauma informed, she told me that humming is actually one of the strategies that she was going to tell me to do on purpose, because it stimulates the vagus nerve, and apparently in stimulation of the vagus nerve, you regulate the nervous system. So our bodies, brilliant apparatuses. So 2 weeks ago, I'm like humming and rocking to come full circle to, being able to go back to work with absolutely no problem. Back to work with absolutely no problem. Back to working on the project. Back to showing up here. But with so much more perspective. Such a different understanding. I've been through quite the evolution when it comes to my relationship with time. I've been through layers and layers and layers of it. I remember when my relationship with time was fully linear. That was it. It was just something that you run out of. And I've come to a place where I understand that there is a compound effect. I understand that the growth and the study and the investment in myself that I'm putting is compounding at a speed that I can't even interpret behind the scenes. I've come to that when I stepped into deep inner work. But when I was put on my ass by something completely unexpected, something entirely traumatizing, I hit another layer of understanding. When you're forced into a surrender, it can feel a little bit more uncomfortable to be like, this is for me. Very recently, I had a live where I talked about, if this is happening for me, now what? Being a much more powerful mantra, a much more powerful statement to return to, rather than everything is happening for a reason. Because when we say everything is happening for a reason, we tend to look for the reason in the moment. And you're not always supposed to find the reason in the moment. But it will come. And so, if this is happening for me, now what? And I relied upon it, in this case yet again, even though it was highly uncomfortable and I fought it all the way. If this is happening for me, now what? And I'm not saying that I know fully what the reason is already. I don't. I don't wish this upon anybody. And yes, I probably would prefer that I didn't get bitten by a patient recently. That would probably be my preference. And at the same time, this lesson with time, I have a feeling that this is going to pay off and compound in a way that I cannot even imagine right now. My ability to relate and really feel physically for the first time how arresting and how out of your control it is when your body is having a traumatic experience. Priceless, that experience. My ability to recognize that just because I had a plan of how something is supposed to go, it doesn't mean it actually even makes sense or that it's truly based off of what is best for me. I decided 1 week into my injury that I was supposed to go back to work. I was supposed to go back to work. It's 1 week. It's been enough time. Says who? Based on what information? But I didn't question it. And it turns out the right amount of time was 2 weeks. Maybe the right amount of time could have been 3 weeks. It could have been a month. The point is the amount of time it takes is the amount of time that it takes. And the process, who I'm being throughout that, is what's most important. Based off of my values, based off of what's important to me, it's to be in alignment with myself. It's for my nervous system to be cared for. It's to be happy. And in this case, what that took for me was 2 weeks. And I was very sure in the midst of the darkest time that this was happening, this was taking too long, that it wasn't good enough. Just arbitrarily, I decided that it wasn't good enough. If I had focused on that, if I had focused on my lack understanding when it came to time, I would have missed out on this profound, deep understanding of the gift and complexity and beauty that time is. This man-created concept. I really got to live and see what it truly is. And it's not about the ticking, the going by. It's what's happening in that time. Who are you? What did you become? The depth with which you use it. So, this past 2 weeks could have been spent with me beating myself up, forcing myself to go back to work, re-traumatizing myself, being in more pain. And briefly, the 2 weeks ago version of Christelle thought that was the best idea. The 2 weeks later Christelle, who took the time off, who rested, who cared for herself, who looked out for herself, realizes that that was actually the most efficient way to spend my time. And the person that I am right now, here, today, the person who is actually prepared to go back to work, the person who is feeling totally aligned and more in love with her body than ever because of how amazing it is, and feeling that her body loves her right back for the time that she's given it. This is the version of me that's going to create the most amazing things. So I just wanted to come on here and discuss this time warp and give you this visceral example that I've been going through over the past little while. And just have you contemplate, because that's what we do. Our lives are just a series of lessons to be extracted. And I truly believe that the quality of our life is determined by our ability to extract those lessons and then use them for our own evolution. What is the greatest evolution that can occur in the time that you have here? 2 weeks can mean so many different things. It's not just simply 14 days. It could be 2 weeks of misery. It could be 2 weeks of contemplation, reflection, insights, breakthroughs, masterpiece conversations, massive growth, sense of awareness, understanding and connection with yourself, resonance with clients, compassion for others who have been through things that you couldn't even imagine. Those 2 weeks are very different experiences. Linearly, they were both 14 days. That doesn't mean anything. And so I know I am absolutely sure that I am going to come again to another deeper layer of this time warp at a different time. I know that. But as I get there, as these profound lessons come through, it is my duty to share, because I know that everybody can relate. I know that we all have this experience, especially in the Western world, where we're all about productivity and what we're putting out and outcomes and results. But the results, they don't matter if it doesn't feel good. And then furthermore, on the flip side, oftentimes when you feel good, the results are better. So let's just question it. This is the ultimate lesson. Just question it. Question that pressure, that lack thinking that you're having about what a certain period of time means, your age, whatever it is. Just question, based off of what? I decided I was supposed to go back to work a week later. Based off of what? Why? Do I have to? This isn't taking long enough to heal. Says who? Based on what? I should have used this past week, much more productively than just taking care of myself. Really? Based off of what information? Because a dysregulated nervous system producing work is way better than a regulated nervous system producing work. I have done more in this day, just today. Just today, the amount of work that I've put towards my business in this one day, in my past, has been more than I've done in a month. So what does it really mean that time? And instead of focusing on the second, the minute, the day, the linearity of it, how about we focus on the quality of it? That's where the time work comes in. Who are you being in that time? Not just how much time is being spent, but who are you being in that time? This is what I want you to contemplate. And this is the random reflection that I really wanted to share tonight. So, I'm doing well. I am back. I missed you. I apologize for that little time off, only simply because I missed you. But I am so in love with my recovery process. I am so in love with the time that I put into myself, the way that I feel now, all the lessons that I've learned, all the lessons that I've extracted, all the people that supported me throughout that experience that I got to meet. I am in love with all of that. And it was the perfect way for those 2 weeks to go. To the best of my ability. They could not have gone better. And I know that the results of that are going to be profound. So I love you. I hope you have the most beautiful and wonderful week ahead. If you are watching this, then there was a lesson in here for you. There was something very special in here for you. And I really wish for you to give yourself loving and compassionate analysis, reflection, contemplation. Just let it sit with you. Just see Just see what comes through. This isn't about beating yourself up. This is just about questioning the automatic. This is about perspective. This is about a new way of looking at things in a way that could be much more impactful to you than just our automatic way of thinking. So give yourself that gift if you've stumbled upon this today. And I will see you very, very, very soon. So I love you. I hope you have the most wonderful week ahead. Thank you for hanging out with me. And we'll talk more about the time warp coming soon. Ciao, ciao.